It's not just a card. It's a way of life. It's access to a world of more. It's not just for dreamers. It's for achievers. Introducing the new UBA Platinum MasterCard, a premium card for those who want more out of life. The UBA Platinum MasterCard offers you an amazing array of perks such as up to 15% off your Avis car rental, exclusive benefits at top hotels, airlines and destinations. Visit a UBA branch near you and request your UBA Platinum MasterCard. UBA, Africa's global bank.
How are we going to get this done? We have a resource person who's going to share insights with us. I don't think we would have found a better person to talk about marketing a shoestring budget. I'll be introducing my guest to you very soon. We have this morning our resource person is a marketing practitioner who successfully transitioned from frontline sales role through the middle belt of supervision to the executive level of strategy, sales, marketing, business development, and customer service. Now, she's held senior management positions in several industries, including the airline industry, media, and then textile manufacturing as well. She's an author. She's written a couple of books. I'm currently reading Jungle Dance. Yes, and she's also the author of the famous Sales 101, the best-selling Sales 101, What Everyone Should Know About Sales. She teaches marketing on a part-time basis, and she's been an adjunct lecturer in Ashesi. She's been a speaker at many conferences here in Ghana and abroad. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest for today, Petra Asamoah. Good morning, Petra.
Good morning, Nee. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. It's very good to have you here. We've been talking on the background, but it's good to have you finally gracing our screens. So it's good to have you here. So, yes, your initial comments, your opening remarks, your thoughts about the business series.
Thank you, Nee, and good morning to all our participants joining us from all across the world. It's been so exciting to see the level of interest from different people, different industry players across nations, and so I'm looking forward to a very interesting discussion today. So when I first published the ad for this session, I got a really interesting response from someone I know, and so I'm going to read what he sent just to set the tone for our conversation. And he says, there are countless opportunities out there, and I believe there are several ways to kill a cat. However, most marketing departments feel that they can only succeed with huge budgets. In the absence of these big budgets, can we find ways of still doing marketing without spending so much money? And so that's sort of got me very excited, because I recognize that even before we decided on the theme, the issue of budgets and marketing will remain a very prominent conversation, because marketing practitioners are constantly having these conversations with either their CEOs, their finance directors, trying to get more money, trying to get the right amount of money. And so generally, there are two ways that we can look at this, just to set the context for today's conversation. There's having a shoestring budget where it's necessitated from the organization not recognizing the importance of marketing, and so they don't provide the needed investment. So rather than seeing marketing as an investment into the business, they see it as a cost center. That's one of the reasons why you end up with a shoestring budget. Another reason why you end up with a shoestring budget is essentially you being a small business, not having the needed funds, or being in a cash-strapped situation. And if you're in a difficult situation, the question is, should we just throw up our hands up in the air and say there's nothing that we can do, or what do we make out of this situation? And for today, I want us to focus on what can we do with what we have, and then how best can we use the resources available to get the best results. So if you're thinking about how to stretch your marketing budget to make it very efficient, this is the conversation we're going to be having today. And so that's how we're going to be talking about it. That's just a bit of what our participants can look forward to.
And Petra, you put me in a fix here because here am I, head of marketing, and you're talking about whether I have all the bags or not the bags and how to market about it, and the fight that exists between marketers and the CEOs on budgets and everything. But Petra, you're a marketing practitioner and you have authored Sales 101. Is there a difference between sales and marketing? Because we hear sales and marketing department, or we hear about sales department, marketing department. Are they just semantics, or is a difference between sales and marketing?
So there's a chapter in my book that's titled Sales and Marketing, Two Sides of the Same Coin. And so I would like to use that analogy to explain. But in the broader sense, marketing is the wider field of knowledge. Sales is a subset of marketing. Marketing is the management process that identifies, anticipates, and satisfies customer needs, but does it as a profit. So while you're thinking about the business, a very, very fundamental and important part of any business is how do we first of all anticipate, how do we identify, how do we meet customer requirements, and how do we do that whilst getting a return for it? And that's marketing. But sales is a subset of marketing. So sales addresses one of the key parts of marketing, which is how do we actually close the deals. So marketing being the broader field of knowledge or the broader management process would say to you, how do we build a brand? What type of impression do we want to leave in our prospective customer minds? What space of their minds do we want to occupy in terms of what positioning do we want to have? Who is our particular customer, and which types of customers should we be appealing to? What are their needs? How do we want to address those needs? What price do we want to set? How do we want to reach our customers in terms of distribution? What channels do we want to use? Marketing does all of those things. And I would use the phrase marketing softens the heart of the customer. And then sales goes in to close the deals. So in some organizations, there's a separation between sales and marketing, essentially because they've made a distinction between customer acquisition, which is what marketing does, so lead generation, and then sales actually does the closing of the deals, signing on the contracts, getting the customers in and getting in the money. And then marketing, it doesn't end there. Marketing ensures that that relationship is maintained. So customer retention is also a key function of marketing. So customer relationship management, all of the things that we do to ensure that we keep our customers delighted, we keep them happy, we keep them with us, and we reduce the options for them to want to switch to our competitors, is all part of marketing. And it's important that marketing is done effectively, otherwise sales becomes very, very difficult. And there are 2 videos on my YouTube channel I've shared with you, Nee, so you can share with participants, where I explain the difference between sales and marketing in a very simple manner, and they can access those resources.
Yes, so we'll be sharing the links with you as this progresses. Watch out in the chat. So we're publishing the links there for you to have a look at them. But Petra, you talk about customer retention exercises. We've seen a new phenomenon, all the increasing importance of customer experience in organizations. How would you say customer experience comes into the whole conversation, particularly looking at small businesses that are not big, like the ATLs and the ones that you've worked for and for UBA? How would they be able to infuse the issues of customer experience into their sales and marketing program or for their organizations?
Okay, so in marketing thoughts, there's a concept called the service dominant logic. Essentially, what that prescribes is that even when you're selling a product, where hitherto you'll be thinking about just having a nice product, the features and benefits meeting customer expectations, marketing is no longer just fixated on that. Even where you don't have direct one-on-one interaction with customers, you have to think about what experience are you leaving the customer with, because the service that you deliver has become so important that becomes the basis of customer choice. And so when we talk about service delivery, we don't just want to say walk into a place and someone is smiling at you or someone greets you. It's actually what impression do you leave in the minds of your customer at every single customer touch point. So whether they've walked into your premises, whether they're interacting with your app on their phone, whether they're getting an email from you, whatever customer touch point there is, you want to leave a positive experience with the customer. And it's so important because customers stay with brands that they like, they buy from people they like, and word of mouth is a very, very important marketing tool. So yes, you might want to invest in advertising, you might want to invest in all of the big ticket items, but word of mouth is very powerful. And in our times now where we even have digital options to spread word of mouth, that's even more imperative that organizations focus on the customer experience, because all it takes is one comments from a very it doesn't even have to be an influential person, it just has to be a regular person who is a friend of a friend of a friend who says, I experienced this brand and I didn't like it. And that becomes a problem for your brand, because that type of feedback also attracts negative emotions from even customers who are not yet within your segment. So it's important that companies really do focus on that customer experience at every touch point. So what we say in marketing is marketing has to be a philosophy for the business. Marketing is not just a function where there's a department that does it, but it has to be everyone's philosophy, from the first gatekeeper at the entrance of the business to the CEO of the organization. Everyone has to be thinking, how can we ensure that every time a customer interacts with us, they have a positive experience? And that's how marketing succeeds.
Wow, very interesting thoughts there. So everybody is a salesperson, and look at her book, or a marketing person. She says in her Sales 101 what everyone should know about sales. Now, Petra, for a small business that is striving to make the mark, that is set up their entrepreneurship small business that they are doing, what do they need by way of marketing to help the business to thrive or to grow?
Okay, so there are two things I'd like to state for small businesses generally. One, to a large extent, marketing is already being done by SMEs or organizations, even when they don't have like a marketing person or a marketing department. And the reason why I say that is because some of the activities they already engage in are marketing activities. What they just need to do is to structure it properly and to focus their attention on specific areas. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so I'm going to talk about three key things very quickly. The second thing is marketing isn't only advertising. So erroneously, we tend to think that once we say marketing, it means I have to have a TV advert, I have to have a billboard, I have to have, maybe I have to do a very elaborate marketing campaign. Marketing is not limited to just advertising. So marketing includes everything from identifying customers, interacting with customers, engaging customers, making sure that customers are satisfied, your packaging, your pricing, your placement, how you ensure that customers get your goods or your service, how they access all of those things. That's all marketing. And then the other thing is marketing is not only about selling. So even though we need to think about getting money, because I'm thinking CEOs in this meeting right now will be thinking, okay, so cut to the chase. How do I make more money for my business? There are a few other things to think about. Okay, so it's not just only about the person closing the deals. There are other things you need to think about before you get to that point. And so this is where we come to the crux of the matter. For a small business trying to figure out how do I make the best out of what I have or seemingly what I don't have, the first thing I'll say is clarify who your customer is. We typically hear a lot of small businesses saying, oh, I want to sell to everyone, or everybody is my customer. That is not a very effective way to go about it. So clarify who your customer is. Be clear on what customer segments exist in the market. So if, for instance, UBA is a bank, we want to be clear on, are we going into SME? Are we going to satisfy SME customers? Are we looking at satisfying large organizations? What do we want to do? What do we want to do and how do we want to do it? But essentially, who is our customer? So customer profiling is a very critical thing for any business to do, and more so a small business that's trying to squeeze money to succeed in marketing. So clarify who the customer is. That's one thing. The second thing is have a long-term view of marketing. So don't just think about marketing as I need to do it now. You don't build a brand in 2 days or 3 days or 6 months or even 1 year. It's a long-term journey. So you don't get to a point where you say, okay, now we've arrived. The reason why every time we open a bottle of Coke, and I know for you, Nee, this is a soft spot. Every time you open a bottle of Coke, there's a feeling that you expect, okay? There's that feeling of refreshment that you expect. And if you don't get it, you'll be looking at the bottle and wondering, is this the real deal? So that's what building a brand is. You want to get to the point where customers know what to expect of you and you're consistent at it. So building a brand is not a one-time event. It's a journey. You don't just arrive there and say, okay, we've arrived. You're consistently doing it. So you think about marketing as a long-term thing. And then think about how you're going to project what you're really great at. And we say that's your unique selling proposition. What are you very, very good at? And how are you going to use that as an advantage in your space? So you think about yourself as an SME, but consider, what am I good at? What are we good at doing? In all of the customer requirements that exist, what part of these requirements are we able to satisfy and satisfy very well? And focus on that. So you're not spreading yourself thin, trying to do everything and be like everyone. And we say the Me Too phenomenon, where everyone is doing something and it's just like the trend, you're jumping on it. If you do that, you spread yourself thin and you won't be very effective. Now, the fourth thing is you need to develop a service blueprint. And a service blueprint sounds like a complex thing, but really it's just simple procedures that everyone in your organization knows they have to follow when they're interacting with customers. For instance, when someone walks into your shop, let's assume it's a shop. Someone walks into your shop. What does the person at the entrance do? Do they keep playing with their phone, pretending they haven't seen the customer, or do they raise up their head, smile, and say, "Good morning, welcome to UBA"? You need to have written down, established, agreed on processes that everyone in the organization follows, and that's a service blueprint. And they're very simple things. When the person who picks up the office phone, what do they say when they pick up the phone? You have a situation where you call an organization and the person is laughing with their colleague on the other end of the line. You're wondering, did I just call this particular organization or is this a mistake? And you're saying hello, 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 and they're still engaged in whatever it is that they're doing. Obviously, the service blueprint is not working or it doesn't even exist. So one, you have to have a service blueprint, and then you have to have a way of measuring and monitoring that it's actually working. Okay, so how long do we take to process, for instance, account opening forms? From the point the customer walks in to the point the account is actually open, how long does it take? You need all of those documented and it has to be followed. And for SMEs, it's critical because we tend to think about organizational culture only for large organizations, but culture eats strategy for breakfast. If we remember that, it will be important that we form our culture from the get-go. So let your staff know.
Petra, hold, you say what? Culture eats strategy up for breakfast. Whoa.
Yes. So if you don't form the culture in the early days, you're going to suffer the consequences later. If you allow your team to do whatever they want, come in whenever they want, speak to customers however they want, it will be difficult for you to correct that later. So set the blueprint. Say, this is how we work and this is what we're going to do. And then the next thing is you want to ensure that you leverage on word of mouth. When you serve customers and they're happy, they're excited, document that. And it's very, very important that you ask your customers to give you referrals. So let them know, I engage business with you and I call you and I say, Henry, I'm very excited. Thank you very much. You can ask your customers, say to them, Petra, do you mind let your family or anybody else who needs my service know that this is what I do? It's a very simple way of getting new customers. So don't be shy to say, give me business. It's a very effective way because we tend to listen more to our family and our friends than what someone we don't know says on TV or in a newspaper ad or on radio. So word of mouth is important, and you can actually ask customers to give you referrals and to pass on information. One of the things that you can also do in terms of capturing word of mouth is getting testimonials. So get customers to send in their comments, post them online, wherever. If you have a customer, a place where you capture customer feedback, let them publish. In an environment where customers are not too keen on doing that, you can give them small rewards. So you can say, for instance, if you post a review, you get a 2% discount or 5% discount on your next purchase. Or if you share your feedback with us, this is what you get. Because in the marketing literature available for Ghana, and let me limit it to Ghana. One of the things we've noticed is that customers will typically not give feedback to the organization. They give feedback to their family and their friends. And then they may just silently switch. So if they're dissatisfied with something you do, most likely they won't tell you. They'll tell their family and their friends, and they just move. So it's important that we encourage that customers give us feedback directly. And then we actually show that we appreciate the feedback. So that's the other thing. And then for small businesses trying to squeeze their budgets, seek partnerships. I think observing the SME space in Ghana, one of the brands I feel has been very successful in this regard has been the Wear Ghana company. So the guys who do the Gigi, they're consistently engaging other small businesses for partnerships and are growing their brands based on the community that they've grown. So if you figure out, if you realize that you don't have too much, like a very big budget, look for other organizations not your competitors, but organizations that can complement what you're offering and go into partnerships with them. Partnerships that both of you can benefit from, and you can grow your brands, you can reach customers that you want to reach. So for instance, events that focus on groups that you want to reach, but you don't have the budget to reach them, you can sponsor, you can give in kind, you can give in cash. Those types of things help you extend your brands without you spending very huge budgets as a small business. The seventh thing is build a community. Think of your customers as a community. Don't just think about them in terms of one-off relationships, so one-off transactions. And that's the thing about selling from a marketing perspective. Even when you want to make the sale, think about, how am I going to ensure that in the next, I'm going to be able to retain this customer for another transaction. And so you don't want to just do cutthroat business way, I'm getting the deal and I don't care what happens next. Think about the next time. Think about it being as a relationship, a long-term relationship. Because we also know, and it's proving that it's easier to sell to existing customers than to gain new customers. You can upsell to your existing customers. You can cross-sell to your existing customers, and it's less revenue. It impacts less on your costs by doing that. So think about how you can stretch the relationship, maintain it over a longer period of time, so that you can gain more out of it. And then the ninth thing is have a budget. Even when you say you don't have money, note down what you want to do and put some figures to it. Okay, because that's how you can stay within structure. If you feel that you don't have a budget, you don't have the funds, so you're just going to do things in piecemeal, you can actually end up spending more than you have available, and then that creates another stress to the business. So document it, have a budget. So essentially, it means you have to have a plan. Don't start without having a plan. Figure out, what am I going to do and how do I want to do it? Because marketing is an imperative. And if you don't have the expertise within your organization, you can ask for help. You can get a marketing consultant on the side. You can get, there's so many tools available online that can help you. So the first point to start from actually is to have a plan, to have a budget, clarify your customer, look for relationships, focus on your unique selling proposition, and build a community.
Wow, interesting thoughts there. And we'll bring this 7 to you. We'll give you highlights. Live tweets happening now on Twitter, on the business series taking place. And Kwame, I see you. Thanks for posting on Twitter. Petra, I've got some questions for you. So before we continue, let me bring your question from Efia, who says that, how do you target high net worth individuals who could be your potential customers if you are marketing on a shoestring budget? Thank you.
Okay, interesting question. So the first thing I would say is figure out, so you know that you want high net worth customers. So it means that you've already done the analysis on who your customer should be. Find out where they are, what they do, what their lifestyles is, okay? And it's it might be a bit complex to determine that, but research helps you do that. And we don't mean research going to commission like a large scale research, but just asking questions can help. So I'm saying, for instance, I want to appeal to high net worth individuals. What does that mean? What's their income level, for instance? What do they do? What's their lifestyle? Where do they go? And then determine how to reach them in terms of your marketing communications. So for instance, what TV programs do they watch? If you want to do TV ads, what radio programs do they listen to? What types of activities do they have on weekends, on holidays? What's their lifestyle? And focus on reaching them where they are. So one of the things that helps marketing become effective is when it's not so in your face, but it's subtle. So it aligns with the customer lifestyle. It's convenient for the customer. You make it come across as this is something that they have to have, not something that is a nuisance on their lifestyle. So you're looking for high net worth customers. What's the best, for instance, what are the best channels to communicate to them? Where do they go? How do I meet them? And to a large extent, if you're looking, speaking within a B2B environment, so where you're looking at corporate clients, you want to also focus not necessarily on above the line items, but more below the line, things that bring you into direct contact with them. So events, meetings, networking events in particular. So if I was working in a bank and I'm looking for high net worth individuals, I'll be asking myself, where do they go and how do I make sure I show up at those events? And a very important thing, especially when you're looking for business, is that you need to recognize that people buy from people they like and people they know. So your network is critical. You can't hide behind your organization's marketing and think that once they're on TV and they're on radio, it will succeed. You as the individual trying to get this business also need to put yourself out there, meet people, let them know what you do, and then you also are able to close these deals. I hope I've answered. Is it a curious question?
If yeah, that's it. That's a curious question.
If yeah.
Yes. And thank you, Petra. So, I mean, they say that your network is your net wealth. So, in terms of how you're able to bring people together determines how your value you bring to the business and the things you do. Okay, another question from Sam Hagan, who says that, what makes you stand out as a sales representative in the corporate field? Okay, this is a more sales question. We'll take that. Petra, please let's know this. I'll come back to that so that we'll stick to our marketing. If you comes back to say that, how do you market big ticket items on the shoestring budget? Again, we'll come back to, because that's the next question we're going on to, what channels and things to do. And somebody who asked the question, who is anonymous, says that, how do you deal with a difficult customer in a competitive environment?
Okay, so anonymous, Mr. or Miss Anonymous, how do you deal with a difficult customer? Think about what the reason is, first off. So what is leading to this customer being quote unquote difficult? There are times where, one, your business is not meeting the customer's expectations, they are dissatisfied with the service delivery. So clarify what the issue is. There are other times where we label a customer difficult because it's difficult to convert them. So we're trying to sell to them and it's a challenge for us. Now, why is it difficult to sell to particular types of customers? There are 4 key reasons. 1, the customer may not have a need, and you haven't clarified that they actually have a need for your business. You are talking to someone who doesn't need what you're selling. The second thing is they may actually not have a desire. So even though they have a need, they don't have an urgent need for it now. So you also have to clarify that. The third thing is they may not have any form of trust for what you're offering. So they may have interacted with a similar product or a similar company in the past, and because of that, there's a lack of trust. Where there's a lack of trust, it's difficult for you to sell. And the fourth thing is they may not be able to afford what you're selling. So sometimes you're actually talking to the wrong type of customer or the wrong potential customer because you haven't clarified at the beginning if they actually have a need. If you're selling MacBooks, for instance, and you're talking to a primary school student and you consistently are engaging them, they obviously may not have the money to buy. Or you have to figure out, are they an influencer in this conversation? Can they influence the actual decision maker? So there's a decision making unit. You have to clarify who you're speaking to, what are their motivations? So if you're speaking to a gatekeeper, what would motivate this gatekeeper to open the door for me? If you're speaking to a decision maker, what would motivate this decision maker to make this decision? Is this person the user of the item or the service? What is their motivation? So let me give you a typical example. Let me use the example of the laptops again. You want to sell a laptop to a bank or a large consignment of laptops, hopefully. And you walk into this bank. The gatekeeper of this transaction most likely would be maybe the head of IT or the head of HR. You need to figure out what's the reason that this head of HR or IT will make a decision on my option. Okay, what is in it for them? Not in terms of what am I going to give them, but what problem is it solving for them? And that's very key. If you think about providing a solution from the perspective of the customer, the client, you're more likely to close more deals because you're not thinking of just yourself. You're thinking of how do I become a solutions provider. So we've moved away from sales just being collect money, to actually being sales being you're a consultant to solve a problem that your customer has. When you approach it from that perspective, it makes it much, much easier for you.
Thank you. And if you have questions, just like we've put to Petra earlier, send them to us in the chat, and then we will bring these questions to the to Petra to answer them for you. So you have questions, please drop your questions in the chat, and then we'll bring them. So Petra, you spoke about word of mouth, and we also spoke earlier about marketing not just being advertising. So if it's not advertising and then you spoke about the importance of word of mouth, what other channels are available to small businesses, to businesses that are have a shoestring budget to be able to drive their marketing efforts?
Okay, so we mentioned that marketing is a management process of anticipating, identifying, satisfying customer requirements. So there's a spectrum. Marketing involves decisions that you make, for instance, on the product. What actually do we want to offer? And when I say product, I mean that as an umbrella term to mean experience, to mean event, to mean service. So we need to clarify what our offer is. What is our product? And if you have a small budget, your product needs to actually be very focused on a particular need, a particular gap that you've identified in the market. So don't just jump on any trend that you say, okay, this is what is working now, so I'm also going to do the same thing. Focus on how to make a unique offering for a particular type of customer. So that's the first thing on the product. The second thing is you need to be able to identify clearly what your pricing strategy is. So how am I going to position my product in relation to the customer I want to serve on a price point? What price is the right price? So there are different arguments in relation to pricing. There's some schools that say when it's highly priced, the perception is that it's a quality product. Some would want to position as affordable and accessible. Some will want to position as a luxury item for just a few people I want to sell to. So there are different pricing strategies, and pricing is a strategy. And when we say strategy, we mean you need to think about it not just as an action, but as a long-term plan. So what exactly do you want to establish or achieve with how you're setting your pricing? Because if you get that wrong, then you begin to have problems. So that marketing, again, not just advertising, there's so many other things. I've talked about the product, and in the product we can think about the features, the benefits, the packaging, the labeling, all of those things come into that. The pricing. Then the third thing is, how are we going to ensure that the customer gets what we have on offer? So how are we going to distribute this thing? What is our strategy to get to the end user? If we're in manufacturing, how are we going to recruit distributors? All of those things are part of marketing's conversation. And then the fourth thing is the communication side of things. And that's where a lot of times marketing focuses on communication. So you asked the question about channels. We need to decide, because of our products, because of our price, because of our distribution strategy, how are we going to communicate? Who are we going to communicate to? What channels are we going to use? And when we say channels, we mean, for instance, what platforms? So are we going to be able to do what platforms in terms of what vehicles are we going to use? Are we going to use the mass approach, like using TV, radio? Are we going to use print media? What's going to be the language we're going to use in terms of the tone? What words? What personality do we want to create for ourselves? How do we want to speak? How do we want to be perceived? All of these things go into your marketing communications. And then you have different things in the marketing communications mix. And I advise that don't just do one thing. Even when you're on the shoestring budget, do a number of things, but do it in an integrated approach. So if you have a budget of, let's say, 20,000 CDs. Think about, how am I going to use advertising in a way that's effective? How am I going to use sponsorship in a way that's effective? PR is a very, very powerful marketing tool that sometimes we discount. We think that PR is just for the communications team, but no, PR is a part of marketing and is very important, because storytelling is what builds brands. That consistency of how you tell the story of your company, of what you're doing, is part of your brand building. So it's a very important part of it. The events that you're part of are part of your marketing activities. How you engage your customers in these events are key. The brand and how you present the brand, the consistency of the brand. I was so excited when Edward shared with me the back artwork that we have, to ensure that we are consistent. So I don't show up in this meeting with some other different thing behind me, but everything about this meeting needs to be consistent with the UBA brand. And that's key. So as a small business, you have to have that plan that you're going through very specifically, focusing on who is our customer, what do we want to say to them, how do we want to say to them, how consistently do we want to say to them, and what vehicles do we want to use. And by all means, if you don't have the capacity within your organization, you can get external help. There's so many resources available online, and there are individuals available who can support you to achieve what you want to achieve. And the key is, don't just think about doing things intensively and stopping, but think about how you can be consistent and extensive. That's what makes marketing effective.
You're still live on the UBA Ghana Business Series. We're talking to Petra Asamoah, who is a marketing practitioner and author of Sales 101, What Everyone Should Know About Sales. Our topic this morning is marketing on a shoestring budget. And keep your questions coming in, and we'll put them to Petra. So Petra, I've got two other questions from anonymous people. I don't know if it's the same person, but the person chooses not to identify him or herself. How do you deliver on a marketing strategy without having management agreement to the channels of marketing and the budget? And as part of your opening comment, so I think it's still a subject of interest for many people. We need to delve a little into that more, and then tie that into the second question that talks about what is the best way to market a new private security service company. What are the marketing channels? What marketing channel will be the most effective? And please, when we're done with the answering, you will send me an invoice and you bring your fees.
Okay.
Yes.
So question on how do you get management approval? This is the baseline of getting your work done as a marketing practitioner. And marketing is not just external, it's also internal. So you need to figure out, how are you going to get management approval? And that's a very, very important question as a marketing manager in wherever you are. Sell your idea internally first for it to succeed externally. If you don't get the internal buy-in, you're going to struggle externally as well. And most likely you will even get your budget approved. So the first thing I would say is figure out, just the same way I was saying, think about the decision-making unit for the client. On the client side, you need to think about the decision-making unit internally as well. Who am I speaking to? If I'm speaking to my finance director, what are his motivations? What are her motivations? What would this individual want to hear? They're thinking about bottom line. They're thinking about, how is this going to bring us a return on our investments? They're thinking about, how is this going to improve the outcomes of the business? Where are we? Obviously, finance is always going to say, where are you cutting down on costs? Have you presented more than one option for this particular activity? So think about their motivations and sell those things to them even before you go into that final budget approval meeting. So do all of the meetings before meetings to try and get everyone aligned on what you're trying to do. It's very, very important, because you don't want to show up in your final board meeting or in your final management meeting with your budget and it gets thrown out. You have to get all the alignment. And this is where sometimes you need to compromise a bit. If you go and sit with, for instance, finance, the finance director, and they tell you, we don't have the funds to do what you want to do, that's not the place to dig in your feet and say, we must do it. Figure out what the compromise positions are. Can we do it in trenches, for instance? Can we do if we're supposed to have a budget of, let's say, 2 million cedis for the year, and finance says to you, we don't have that amount of money, even though that's the allocation for you. Can you go into a negotiation? You can go into a negotiation and say, for instance, let's do this on a quarterly basis, or let's do this half yearly, so that as we go, we know how much we have available and then we can spend. And then for marketing, it's also key that you build relationships with key players in your space. So the vendors, media organizations, people who help you achieve your goals, you need to build relationships with them. So one of the things that helps businesses, and unfortunately we have to say, is getting things on credits can help your business, your marketing agenda. So not necessarily always going to finance and saying we have to pay now. If you can negotiate a credit line, let's say 14 days, 30 days, it helps you, it helps your organization as well. And then finance begins to see you as a partner rather than an opponent. Okay, so that's the thing. And then management also, think again, what are the motivations of senior management? What are they trying to achieve? And we say this quite dismissively: help your boss achieve your boss's goals. What's that particular thing your CEO wants to achieve? And let your activity and your interactions with them show that you are aligned with trying to achieve the organizational goals. And that's how you get support for things. But I mean, I've experienced situations where, in spite of your best efforts, you still don't get the budget, or you still don't get the approval you need. But essentially, you still have to ask yourself, what can I do with what I have? So you ask for 1 million cedis, or you ask for 500,000, and you are giving maybe 100,000 or 200,000. Sit down and go through the process of actually working on a plan that can stretch that money as far as it can to achieve what you want to achieve. And the key is to being consistent rather than just doing things in short bursts. Wow. And there was the question about the invoice question. What was it again?
Yeah, the invoice question. So it's as a security company, and there's another one that is coming in and also be sharing your invoice on a vocational school. So you have a vocational school and a security company. What can we do? Okay, so for both situations, the first thing I would say is the business owners and the people involved need to figure out what they want to achieve. So the business has to sit down and do a strategic plan. And in that strategic plan, they will do the business goals, they will do and the first thing actually is the audits. You want to ask yourself what's going on in the external environment, what's going on internally that will help us either achieve our goals or will prevent us from achieving our goals. And then you set your objectives, you set your strategy. In setting your strategy, you clarify who your customer is, what segments exist in the market, and who you want to focus on. You also clarify how you want to be positioned. And then you go into marketing as a function. Okay, so what do we want to do? Clarify what your product is, what your service is, what is best about us, what's your unique selling proposition. So for the security company, what are we good at? What are we offering? Is it just that we're going to have guards, or we're going to say that we are fast on responsiveness? What is that thing that's going to set us apart? Are we going to say that we have guards who are respectful? Are we going to say that we have guards who are proactive? Are we going to say that our guards don't come to work and sleep on the job, and you never arrive at the gate and the guard is washing his hand because he just had kinky? We need to clarify that. And then you go through your plan. So what exactly do we want to achieve? You set your objectives. How do we want to achieve it, and work through? But by all means, it's not a straightforward. We can't give like a full prescription for a business on this call, but I'm definitely available if you want to reach out to me after this. And the same applies. Yes, so I was going to say that we'll be sharing with you at the end of this session Petra's details on how you can contact her for further engagement beyond the session. We're on for an hour. We'll be wrapping up these conversations pretty soon. But Petra, there are more questions that have come in from either participants for you. Bismarck says that I'm really learning something here. Thank you, Bismarck, for joining us, and we're happy that you are able to learn something from our session this morning. There's also Israel, who says that it's pricing. You spoke quite extensively on pricing and how pricing can be a strategy for you to market on a shoestring budget. But Israel is asking, is pricing the only strategy to help you carve a niche or attract the right customers? And let's tie that in, if you don't mind, to Belinda's question. Okay, Belinda is also giving us compliments that awesome presentation and learning points. So yes, is pricing the only strategy that can help you to market on a shoestring budget?
No, actually, I don't advise that pricing becomes too much of a focus. It's one of the things, but all of the P's that I mentioned, so the products, the price, the placement or distribution, how you're going to reach out, how you're going to communicate to your promotions, your processes are important also. Your people, who you're recruiting, how you're attracting and retaining the right talent for your organization, that's also part of your strategy. And then the interaction the customer has with your physical environment. The physical representation of your business is also important. All of those things tie into how you position yourself for a particular customer base. So pricing is just one of the things. And the thing about pricing is if you present it so much as your main thing, it can actually become negative for your business. So the customer keeps focusing so much on the price, rather than focusing on the end-to-end value that you bring. And yes, in our environment, and depending on what you are offering, what business you are in, price is important. I mean, we cannot discount that, but it's your responsibility as marketing to ensure that value for money becomes what the customer is looking for and what they can be guaranteed of getting from you, so that even where you are slightly more expensive than a competitor, they know that when I come to this person, I'm going to get exactly what I want in the right time, at the right environment, and I'm going to be happy. And that's something that salespeople also have to be able to counter. It's an objection that salespeople have to counter. How do you counter the objection of price? If you're getting customers consistently saying you're too expensive, or they perceive because you are lower priced, you are not as good in terms of quality, it's a task. And one of the things that you can do to overcome that pricing objection is to communicate more on the value that you bring. One, the value the product brings, but also the value that you bring as an individual to this relationship. So you can actually become so much of a consultant to a customer that they are engaging you for things beyond just the initial transaction that you've carried out with them. They're asking for your advice, you're providing information for them. And this is where companies can also benefit. Content remains a very important part of engaging customers. So don't just wait to push information about your product or your service or your experience. Give customers beyond what they want from you. So for instance, this SME business series, you're not required to do it. You are a bank, but you've thought about the fact that your customers need this type of information to help grow their businesses. And so you've introduced it. It costs you money. It's an investment you're making. It's not your core business, but you're doing it. That's because you've identified that this is an important thing. And so you become a reference point for customers. They want to keep coming back to you. And I was so excited because I got feedback from people who said they are UBA customers who had received emails or information on the session. And that was good because you know that you have customers who may have a particular need and you're providing beyond just your core business solutions to support them. Because when they grow, your business grows as well.
You're still on the UBA Ghana Business Series. We're almost at the end of our session for today. But Petra, we're in Ghana. I mean,
Yes.
You know, we do know the things happening. You and I know that media spend in Ghana is quite high. I mean, the budgets for media are really, really expensive today. I'm an SME just starting up. We know what the Ukraine-Russia war has brought to us. We know what inflation has done to our country. We all know, I mean, the situation in which we find ourselves today. As a business, young business, SME growing up, what would be your advice to me in terms of how to plan my marketing budget within these times that we find ourselves?
Okay. The first thing is don't fret. I was trying to look for a more marketing word to use. Don't think that you cannot do anything. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is, again, clarify who your customer is. I can't belabor this point. It's critical that you are clear on who do we want to reach out to. Because once you clarify that, the types of marketing activities that you carry out will be clearer, will be more focused, and you can be more consistent. So those are the key things for me. And then have a plan. Don't jump on every trend or everything that's going on and think is going to be effective. So there's a very interesting trend now where consistently organizations are using influencers to drive their marketing communications. It's useful, but you need to be clear if it's useful for you. And you need to also be clear on who you're using and how you're using them. Because the thing about using influencers is it may also come across as being artificial and forced rather than it being a natural endorsement. So that's one of the things. So for an SME, be very clear on who your customer is. Be clear on what you're trying to achieve. So have a plan. Follow through the plan consistently. So don't be worried if you can't do 100,000 TV budget. If you can do it's in small bursts. And then look for options that don't necessarily need big budgets. And that's the blessing of digital. Digital can give you some access to particular audiences once you know the right channels to use. So everybody doesn't have to use Facebook. Everybody doesn't have to use Instagram. But depending on who your customer is, you need to be on particular channels. LinkedIn has become a very, very important tool for most for corporate organizations and even for individual brands who are trying to sell themselves, but try to brand yourself as well. You need to know the language of the platform, how to use the platform, what works on those particular platforms. So it's counterproductive where you just pick content or captions from what you post on Facebook and put the same thing on Instagram, you put the same thing on LinkedIn, you put the same thing on Twitter, because these platforms have different characters. And by all means, if you can't do it yourself, you can get external help. Digital has become so engaging that we have so many young people in the space who understand it, who can help you work on your plans, but have a plan. And don't leave it to this individual who is implementing it for you. Try and understand it for yourself. As a small business owner, try and understand it for yourself so you know what they're trying to do. And a very simple way of doing that is let them have a content plan. They can have a content plan for the month that you discuss with them, you engage them, you try and understand what they're trying to do. So every time they post, you know what they are posting, you know what you're trying to achieve by those posts, and then you can follow through. So for small businesses, the first thing is clarify who your customer is. 2, have a plan on what you're going to do, follow through on your plan, and just be consistent. And I'm going to toggle back to the previous point I made about brand building being a journey and not a destination. So think about your company, think about your brand as a long-term journey that you're on, and just consistently work towards what you want to achieve.
Thank you. So there are some more questions coming in, and you've got one of your marketing colleagues here, because looking at the person talking about 7Ps and all. So Phoebe says, how does your physical environment affect your product or service marketing? Do you always have to consider all 7Ps in marketing for your product or service?
I'll say yes, consider all of them, but the mix is the issue. So depending on what you're dealing with, the mix you might be more skewed towards focusing on the process, or you might be more skewed towards focusing on distribution, depending on what you're trying to push, depending on also the life stage of the products. Okay, so if, for instance, this is a new product and it's in the introductory stages and you're trying to push it, of course, you're going to be investing more in trying to get awareness up. And then you get to a point where awareness is already at where it should be and it's growing, and you may want to focus on another area of your plan. So marketing should be done in an integrated approach, meaning that you do a bit of everything, but everything has to try and work together. That's important. And to the question of physical evidence goes beyond just the office space and the ambience. It can even be how your staff present themselves. And this is one of the things about how your staff present themselves. Third parties who act in the name of your organization are considered part of your organization as well. Dispatch riders. If you're sending your products to your customers through a dispatch rider, don't just discount it and say, oh, he's not my staff or she's not my staff. In most instances, how they present themselves, how they engage with customers, they pick up the phone and some of them say, Madam, where are you? And don't tell you where they're calling from. That alone.
No, I'm asking you where you are. So, I mean, yes, we want to know where you are so I can deliver to you.
So it's your responsibility as the business owner to find those third parties that can be aligned to what you're trying to achieve. And that's a challenge. But I've noticed quite positively in recent times, a lot of small businesses are going into partnership with delivery companies so they can manage that part of the business as well. So yes, you may be using third parties, but as much as possible, try and involve them in your process so that they are part of helping you achieve your goal, because otherwise they can actually be counterproductive to the business. So yes, physical evidence, and especially in situations where we're doing lots of things virtually, you might not have an office space where people walk in. So in terms of having physical evidence there, but anything else that presents evidence to the customer. So anything that is in the customer touch points. Your website can even be physical evidence. How your emails are written, what interaction they have with your app. So if they go onto your app and it's very difficult and cumbersome for them to engage, that becomes a negative feedback for you, where it becomes a challenge for the customer. So we should think about the P's generally, think about touching as many of them as possible. But I would say that in our current environment, having a service-oriented company that makes marketing a philosophy for the whole organization is more of an imperative.
Petra, Naomi Kokuro says, awesome delivery to you. Thanks, Naomi, for joining us here. So, Petra, as we bring this down, I mean, there are more questions to ask, but we also got to respect our time. We understand that. So I find myself in an area where you have several people dealing in the same thing or similar to what I'm engaging in, and everybody's trying to market their goods or products or services one way or the other, and engage in. Or there are several people on this call now who are learning all the things. So after putting all of this together, is there a way I can cut through the clutter so that in the midst of the clutter and everybody out there making the noise advisedly, as in trying to project themselves, how do I distinguish myself or cut through the clutter so that I would be noticed? Differentiation.
So I use them Ghana as an example, and I'm going to use them again because it's a good example of how you can, knowing that you have a very good product, you're not a big company, but you want to achieve something, has worked. That's an example for me in Ghana. So for a small business saying that there's a lot of things going on, I don't know how to break through. One, be distinct. Have something that what you are offering, let it be distinct enough for it to stand out. So at the beginning of your business, and if you've already started the business and you're not yet clear, you can always go back to that strategic planning and thinking through it. What exactly are we good at? And how are we going to project this unique offering that we have to our customers? That's the first thing. Clarify what your offer is. The second thing is clarify who your customers are and where are they? What are they engaged in? What's their lifestyle? If you're able to focus on at least those two things, everything else will begin to fall in place. So you look for the relationships that you need to build, the partnerships you need, the interactions you need to have, how you build a community. Because if you're building a community, your community now becomes they become your billboard, they become your radio ad, they become your TV ad. They are the ones who are promoting your business beyond just what you are also doing. So it becomes complementary rather than you standing alone and doing everything. Okay, and cutting through the clutter, figure out what is not popular but effective. Okay, so a good example, and Henry, this is not to make your head grow any bigger than it already is, but a good example is what you're doing with the UBA business series. Just by this one activity, you are breaking through a lot of communication barriers because people who are not necessarily UBA customers are on this call. And because you now have data from the registration, you can go back to them with information that may make them move from where they are to where you want them to be. So those are the things. You need to look for innovative ways, simple ways of breaking through. So things that not everybody is thinking about. And when I say not everybody is thinking about, it means that as an organization, you need to have a thinking plan. Innovation does not necessarily mean that you have to do something that nobody else has done. It could also mean that you do something that people are doing, but do it in a different way. Or figure out what gap exists in the market. So everybody is selling water. Is there anybody doing it? Everybody's doing this particular way. Is there any other way that we can do it that one still meets the need that exists, does it at the right price, is able to be accessible to the right type of customer that we want to reach to? So that's why we say marketing is a management process. So you can't just do it anyhow, anyway. You need to think through it properly and plan properly and work through executing that plan.
Thank you very much. And Petra, let me thank you for being on this call, the UBA Business Series brought to you by UBA Ghana. Quick announcement for you is that the Tony Elumelu Foundation or the Tony Elumelu Storytellers Fund is open for applicants in addition to the TEF funding that gives support to entrepreneurs in general field. Tony Elumelu, Group Chairman of UBA, is also offering a fund to storytellers. It's open from now to 23rd September. Go onto the website. The site will be put in the chat. You can go there if you are in media, in advertising, you are in places where you are looking for opportunities to support you. You can look at the Tony Elumelu Storytellers Fund and you can get some funding from there. So Petra, it's been nice having you. Final comments before, and as you make these final comments, people have asked on the chat and questions where we can get copies of your books to buy, Sales 101 and Jungle Dance, and also if we need to speak to you beyond this, how do we get into contact with you? Okay.
Thank you, Harry. And I just want to thank the UBA team. This has been an exciting 1 hour and a few minutes, but it's been good. The participants have also been quite engaging, so thank you for the questions. If you need to reach out to me, my email address is petra.asamoah@gmail.com, and you can reach out to me on any of my social media platforms. I'm on Instagram, P Abba Asamoah. I'm on Twitter, Abba Asamoah. Facebook, LinkedIn, Petra Abba Asamoah. So I'm quite responsive. So if you send me messages, you have questions, follow-up questions, I'll by all means respond to you and try and give you the needed assistance. I have some resources on my YouTube channel, Petra Asamoah, so you can access them there. They're very useful. So I did a Sales 101 series for TV, I think 2 years ago, and all of the videos are on there. So some of the questions we've asked here today are addressed there. My book is available at EPP Bookshop Legon. It's available on Amazon for our friends outside of Ghana. It's available on Book Nook, which is Ghana's biggest online bookshop. And if you want copies for your teams, you can reach out to me directly and I would arrange that for you. And I do have small conversation sessions with people when they buy books for their team. So that's an option that you can look forward to. But to wrap up, for everyone on this call, marketing managers, marketing practitioners, SME owners, entrepreneurs who are trying to figure out what to do with marketing, think about marketing as a strategic decision for your business. So it's not something that comes after you've already thought about what you want to do. It's at the beginning. So deciding on who your customer is, how you want to meet their requirements, what you want to use in terms of meeting their requirements, how you want to communicate with them, how you want to engage them, how you want to attract customers, retain those relationships, grow those relationships are all part of marketing. So you may not have called it marketing, but that's what marketing is, and that's what you can focus on. And let it be a philosophy. Let everyone in your organization have a singular objective in ensuring that everyone who engages with us has a positive experience. They want to come back. They want to tell other people, give other people positive reviews about us, and that's how we grow our bottom line. Thank you, Henry.
Thank you, Petra. Asamoah is a marketing practitioner. She's an author of Sales 101, what everybody should know about sales, and also of Jungle Dance. She's a lecturer and a marketing practitioner. It's been nice having you, Petra Asamoah, for our conversations today. Watch out for the next edition of the UBA Ghana Business Series coming to you soon. And we'll be talking on other aspects of business and things that will help to grow the SME business space and help us grow in our businesses. It's been nice having you all, and thank you. Have a good business day.
Thank you.